everybody. Welcome to the Nightly News at 9. The date is May 20th, 1954, just 3 days after the Brown v. Board of Education ruling. For tonight's story, we're covering perhaps one of the most significant trials of all time. It will go down in history as a landmark of all United States Supreme Court cases. Brown v. Board of Education is the case that ended legal segregation in public schools.
As many of you know, this is a case that will change history forever. This trial comes from people from all sorts of backgrounds. The people who took a stand in the trial were teachers, secretaries, welders, ministers, and students who really just wanted to be treated equally. As word spread to the case, many people related back to the case when a little girl's parents sued so that she could attend an all-white school in her neighborhood. The court case is named after her, Linda Brown. On top of that, over 1/3 of states segregated their schools by law. This case started off as 5 separate cases. In 1950 and 1951, lawsuits were filed in Kansas, South Carolina, Virginia, Delaware, and the District of Columbia on behalf of Black elementary students who attended legally segregated schools.
By the time of the case, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People became the largest and most powerful civil rights organization in the nation. They had won previous cases that were said to have been violations. I'll let Lainey tell you a little bit more about that.
For example, in the Sweet v. Painter case, the Supreme Court ruled that the state of Texas had violated the 14th Amendment by establishing a separate, unequal, all-black law school.
Not long after that, the NAACP mounted a much broader challenge to segregated public education at all grade levels. This grew to be the case that we know as Brown v. Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas.
In past cases, the NAACP asserted that Texas and Oklahoma had failed to provide equal educational experiences. However, in the Brown case, the NAACP challenged the separate but equal principle itself. The Supreme Court agreed with the argument that segregated public education violated the United States Constitution. All 9 justices supported the Brown decision. Lainey, what have you heard about the court decision?
I have information about the decision that was written by Chief Justice Earl Warren. His question in his decision was, does segregation of children in public schools solely on the basis of race deprive the children of the minority group equal education opportunities? He then followed his question with the answer, we believe that it does. In the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place.
As expected, it was hard for people to adjust, and some people had no intentions of doing so. In 1956, about 100 Southern members of Congress endorsed the Southern Manifesto. This pledged to oppose the Brown ruling through all lawful means on the grounds that the court had misinterpreted the Constitution. On top of that, the Ku Klux Klan staged a revival. White citizen councils were formed to declare that they would not be integrated.
President Eisenhower has also provided little leadership to the civil rights front. But when the Little Rock crisis occurred, the incident with 9 young African American students when they enrolled in an all-white school, they were threatened to be lynched and mobbed on their way to school. Eisenhower then sent federal troops to Little Rock to protect the students and enforce the court's decision.
Because of that, the Civil Rights Act of 1957 was passed and turned into law. It had the power to investigate violations of civil rights. It also gave the United States Attorney General greater power to protect the voting rights of African Americans. Society will not be the same from this case.
It is no surprise that things will never be as easy as they once were. For some, it was a successful beginning of integration, and for others, it was a sad fall of segregation. The progress will soon begin to show when it comes to integration, but it will take long before it is done without a little bit of a fight. By early 1964, only about 1% of Black children in the former Confederacy attended school with whites, and of those students, they often endured constant harassment. But because of this case, schools will be integrating in the future. Now back to Sydney and Haley.
That's all that we have for tonight's news. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Yes!